Did you know? Sometimes the most embarrassing moments make the funniest stories. I should know. Let me tell you about the time I completely flopped in my school talent show. It wasn't pretty, but it was definitely memorable. It all started when I decided to sign up for the annual school talent show. I had always loved performing, but I had never done it in front of such a large audience before. The excitement was palpable, and I spent weeks practicing my act. I chose to perform a magic trick, something I thought would be both impressive and entertaining. Little did I know it would turn into a comedy of errors. On the day of the show, I was a bundle of nerves. As I stood backstage, I could hear the audience's laughter and applause for the acts before me. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking. When my name was finally called, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, blinded by the bright lights. I started my act with a flourish, pulling out my deck of cards and beginning my routine. But almost immediately, things started to go wrong. The cards slipped from my sweaty hands and scattered across the stage. I tried to recover, but my mind went blank. The audience started to giggle, and I could feel my face turning red. Determined to salvage my performance, I moved on to the next part of my trick. I reached into my hat to pull out a rabbit, but instead, I pulled out a pair of my dad's old socks. The audience burst into laughter, and I could hear my friends in the front row howling with delight. I was mortified, but I couldn't help but laugh along with them. By the time I finished my act, I had completely abandoned my original plan. I ended up improvising a comedy routine, making fun of my own mistakes and turning the whole thing into a joke. The audience loved it, and I received a standing ovation. Looking back, that talent show was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But it also taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the best way to handle failure is to embrace it and find the humor in it. That night, I learned that it's okay to laugh at yourself and that even the most embarrassing moments can become cherished memories. It all started innocently enough. Our school announced a talent show. Everyone was excited. I decided to give it a shot. I mean, how hard could it be, right? Famous last words. I chose to do a comedy routine. I practiced in front of my mirror. I even made my dog laugh. Okay, maybe he was just yawning, but still, I felt ready. Or so I thought. For weeks, I dedicated myself to perfecting my act. Every day, I would stand in front of that mirror, trying out new jokes, tweaking my delivery, and timing my punchlines. I even marked off the days on my calendar, counting down to the big night. My notebook was filled with scribbles, crossed out lines, and new ideas. I was determined to make people laugh, to hear that sweet sound of applause and laughter filling the room. I watched countless hours of stand-up comedy, studying the greats. I took notes on their timing, their expressions, and their stage presence. I practiced in front of the mirror, mimicking their movements and trying to capture that same magic. I even practiced my facial expressions, making sure every joke landed just right. I was convinced that all this preparation would pay off. I decided to test my material on my friends. They laughed, but I couldn't tell if it was because my jokes were actually funny or if they were just being supportive. Either way, it gave me a boost of confidence. I felt like I was on the right track. But as the day of the performance approached, my nerves started to get the better of me. The night of the performance, I was a bundle of nerves. Backstage, I paced back and forth, taking deep breaths and trying to calm myself down. I adjusted the microphone, making sure everything was perfect. I kept telling myself that I was ready, that all my practice would pay off. But as I stepped onto the stage and faced the audience, I realized that no amount of practice could prepare me for the real thing. The bright lights blinded me, and the faces in the audience seemed to blur together. My mind went blank, and I struggled to remember my lines. I stumbled through my routine, my jokes falling flat. The laughter I had imagined was replaced by an uncomfortable silence. It was a humbling experience, to say the least. As I walked off the stage, I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. My friends were there to offer support, telling me that it wasn't as bad as I thought. But deep down, I knew that I had a lot to learn. Practice might not make perfect, but it does make progress. And with each performance, I would get a little better, a little more confident. So I went back to the drawing board, determined to improve. I wrote new jokes, practiced even harder, and faced my fears head-on. Because in the end, it's not about being perfect. It's about the journey, the growth, and the courage to keep going, no matter how many times you stumble. And who knows? Maybe one day, I'll make my dog laugh for real. The big day arrived. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach. I put on my best outfit. Looking back, maybe not my best choice, but we'll get to that. I was ready to wow the crowd. Section 5. Lights, camera. Wardrobe malfunction. The spotlight hit me. I started my routine. The crowd was silent. Too silent. Then, disaster struck. My pants ripped. Right down the middle. Section 6. A showstopper, literally. The silence broke into gasps, then laughter. I froze. What could I do? I tried to make a joke. It fell flat. I wanted to disappear. Section 7. The aftermath. I scurried off stage, my face burning with shame. The laughter echoed in my ears. I thought my life was over. I would never live this down. Section 8. The real talent. But guess what? The next day at school, everyone was talking about my performance. They thought it was hilarious. Turns out, my real talent wasn't comedy. It was making people laugh, even by accident. You see, it all started when I was asked to perform at the school talent show. I had always been a bit of a class clown, but I never thought of myself as particularly funny. I decided to give stand-up comedy a try, thinking it would be a fun way to entertain my friends and maybe even impress a few teachers. I spent weeks preparing my routine, practicing in front of the mirror, and even testing out jokes on my family. The night of the talent show, I was a bundle of nerves. My hands were shaking and my heart was racing as I stepped onto the stage. The spotlight was blinding, and for a moment, I couldn't see the audience. But then, I took a deep breath and started my routine. At first, the audience was silent. I could feel the sweat trickling down my back, and I started to panic. But then, something amazing happened. I tripped over the microphone cord and fell flat on my face. The audience erupted in laughter. I quickly got up, brushed myself off, and continued with my routine. But every time I made a mistake or stumbled over my words, the laughter grew louder. By the end of my performance, the entire auditorium was in stitches. I had never heard such loud and genuine laughter in my life. I walked off the stage feeling a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. I had made a complete fool of myself, but somehow it had worked. The next day at school, everyone was talking about my performance. My classmates couldn't stop laughing as they recounted my mishaps on stage. Even the teachers were chuckling as they passed me in the hallways. It was then that I realized my real talent wasn't in delivering perfectly timed jokes or clever punchlines. My real talent was in making people laugh, even if it was by accident. From that day on, I embraced my role as the accidental comedian. I stopped worrying about being perfect and started enjoying the moments of spontaneous humor that life threw my way. Whether it was tripping over my own feet, mixing up my words, or making funny faces, I found joy in the laughter of others. And in turn, I discovered a new sense of confidence and self-acceptance. So, if you ever find yourself in a situation where things aren't going as planned, remember this. Sometimes, the best moments come from the unexpected. Embrace the chaos, laugh at your mistakes, and you might just find your own real talent along the way. Section 9. Life's unexpected turns. Life is funny that way. Sometimes our biggest flops turn into our greatest successes, and sometimes our most embarrassing moments become our funniest stories. Section 10. Want more laughs? So, the next time you're feeling down, remember my little talent show mishap. And if you want something like this again, follow for more.